Omen cheki inge podane dusum sange kunge ngowoni rasim chogo musmaden zebe lame shabla sowa ende tongmar dambi che nyamsu lembe kulun sangbo tarba tubdeki samba ngechungdang tini dendeki che nyamsu lemba teya miyul rani kone chedo maimbar rangshin simchin tamcheki chedo yin sambe 장십기 셈단 덴베거니 슈딘디 되니 낭주 롭종 장기 유 선배 타마게 골롱 잠시 마인바 담비추 아 퇴바단 선배 냠수 랭기 유 근데 냠수 랭기 그 고갑 라바데 신든데장 가와상 냠비게 되니 가와당 또와당 덴베거니 담비추 셈버슈스
Let's start by giving rise to the most excellent pure intention for engaging in this Dharma session. The intention to attain liberation, the wish to attain liberation, which is known as the mind of renunciation. But not only that, thinking that I am now going to practice the Dharma, right, in this Dharma session, but I'm not going to do it for my own sake alone. I'm going to do it for the benefit of all sentient beings. That is the mind of awakening, bodhicitta. So with those two thoughts of renunciation and the mind of awakening, we then need to think that we're not going to just study like an ordinary lesson here, right? We're actually going to practice the Dharma in this Dharma session by means of receiving the teachings, reflecting on the meaning of the teachings, right? So how fortunate we are. We should also then arouse the mind of joy. We can say we should be grateful and really appreciate how fortunate we are with this excellent opportunity to engage with the Dharma every week, right? So then in that spirit of renunciation, the mind of awakening, and gratitude, please engage with the Dharma.
다 아주 Gyud Lama shung tindechi lobjong chani nyamsu lengu yore teni ta nyamsu lembar chepala lamgi rimba chila teni nyamsu lengu yoba yindu teni lamgi rimbe korla an tortu shugu yore tan den nane khasang tangbo teni lamgi tendi shusini nipa lam tokche ki shirap sini di shube kabre ta dela yang 퇴섬 검숨기 시럽 숨이 benangni 퇴비 시럽 di shusini ta khasang sambi shirap de kola shube kabre.
In this Dharma session, we are studying the text entitled Uttara Tantra Shastra, the highest continuum. And in the last Dharma sessions, we have been looking at the way to put these teachings, the instructions found in this text, into practice. And the way to really engage with this treatise in terms of one's own practice is the way of going through various stages of the path. And so in the last Dharma sessions, then we have been we have been concerned with those various stages of the path. The first one was the stage of the path where we need to obtain the precious support for engaging in this Dharma teachings. So we have already covered that. The second point, the second stage of the path is concerned with wisdom or insight that we need to develop so that it will enable us to accomplish the path, to realize the path. And when it comes to this insight, it's actually threefold. The one that arises from listening to the teachings, the one that comes from contemplating on the teachings, and the one that comes from practicing the teachings. And we have already finished a discussion talking about the first type of wisdom, the one that comes from studying and or listening to the teachings. And in the last Dharma sessions, we have started looking at the second type of insight, the one that comes from contemplation. And so we will continue then with that topic now.
다 될라 가상 자비 직능라 명악 삼배 대중문학 좀 세디 쉬비가브레 다 될라더니 가상 명악 세야 되당 삼바 세디 되니 삼중기 시랍디 명악라 땡구거래 되니 삼바 세나야 되니 삼록당바 점지 마임버 수수 퇴비 시랍기 고샤비기 돈다디 랑귤란 자니 가당 땡주 명하던 줄나라 송샤바던 줄 조디 심르 자니 뇽와 템바지 제바텔라 아니 삼중기 시랍 세기레 선다디 슈심바레 다디 삼델라 드링 숨바디 되니 대좀 문나 좀세 측치도와 대좀세 다디니 많이 이런 바슈게 인스.
So let's look at the line of the text. Actually, we're looking at the Mahamudra Aspiration Prayer that outlines those 5 stages of the path. So we're looking at the verse 5, and the second line there reads, contemplating the oral instructions conquers the darkness of doubt. So in the previous Dharma session, I have explained the concepts of the oral instructions. Actually, literally here should be understood more like the fifth essential instructions, and the term contemplating. So here we have to understand that this insight, wisdom that we all need to obtain that comes from contemplation, comes from us relying on the fifth instructions of a teacher. And by contemplation, we don't just mean simply pondering over or thinking, like, right, using our conceptual mind to think about the teachings. This is not the idea of contemplation. Rather, contemplation means taking the knowledge that we have obtained when studying the scriptures and reasoning, receiving the teachings, right? We got that intellectual understanding, knowledge. And now, in this process of contemplation, we have to integrate it with our own being. We have to apply it, so to say, to our own life, to our own mind, and thereby gain experiential understanding of the teachings, not just a mere intellectual one, but really experiential feeling of the teachings. So that process then is known as contemplation. And now we'll continue with the remaining few words of this line, such as conquering the darkness of doubt.
다음 삼중기 시랍디기 디바숨기 나니 태숨기 디바디 매버서 그래서 삼중기 시랍디 봐요. 다 될라더니 지당 태숨세디 ngaransu logi nangni da dibaki lojire Tene di ngeshe kin docho sun gyo bachire. Tene korang ki ngo di lo tse nyi sun ne paas ne ngarang su ina chi tse nyi yo batawo.
To be of two minds.
Tati inchi ke la tse nyi se lam na ya kandi yungo yo na nga zu beba ki tse nyi se karwa. Ngeshe.
Peut-être. Peut-être. Sorry, it's French. To be of two minds, maybe? Gonda de ne pekedi.
Tene te zum se di lo tse nyi su gyo wekin tanyi chingi logic la te zum se ni se gyo re.
So this then process of integrating the teachings, making them really personal, clears away our doubts, right? And doubt is here one of the free obscurations that are being cleared away by the free times of wisdom. So the wisdom that comes from contemplation then does away with doubt. So now we need to understand what is doubt, right? Actually, doubt is a confused, doubt pertains to a confused state of mind. Confused mind means it's opposite of having clarity in the mind, of having certainty in one's mind, right? So doubt, when we give a definition of doubt in Tibetan, we say it really nicely. It's like the mind that has 2 points. In other way, we can say in English, to be of two minds, right? When you're really not sure, like it's kind of like your mind now has been split into having 2 different points of view, if we were to translate literally this definition from the Tibetan.
Tene da degi kandi chini dibgire se na pedo shana nganzu ki lo la tesum ye na tene lo di nipa di meba chadu go re se di pena kira sacha chigla dogu go na rwa lamka mangbo ye na susu dosa lamka di seba ha go na teka chini gyobo leptu go rwa tele nipa shuk chumbo chire gyobo da le labo chini leptu go re ta kirang ki tene lamka sumdo chasang la tene re shindu samlo itang pa ina chu ina samba ina 아니 격벌레 마토바다 윤릉부 거바다 되니 강달디 람갈은 드레드라 니바 메바 차루도 와 니바 충충 나란소이나 직 부스트 메베스라고 저래 냠린 제베 값을라 태숨이나 그러봐 다 나란소 있는 데를 남는 되게 배제 아주 네 가지 제고들 에너지 슉 좀 보지 고도 와 랑신게 지나니 innate energy 도 보지 태숨도 여봐 있는데 에너지도 자산도 라도 그래 디 라도도 아니 곰잡아 있네래 냠는 제바나 거의 슉 좀보다 네버 좀 보지 튼투고요 말해.
If we ask, in what way does our doubts obscure our minds, right? How do the doubts obscure our mind? To give an example, really, doubting makes our minds weak, feeble. We lose energy when we doubt. Just think about it. When you are presented with a choice of having 3 roads and you're not sure which road is actually leading to the destination that you want to go to, like, you're lost. If you really knew, like, okay, so there's this road, that one, but this one is mine. When you're really sure, when you don't have any hesitation or doubt, you're going to travel really swiftly and easily. Right? There won't be many obstacles. Because you already know which way to go. So you're not going to waste your time or energy. Now, when you don't know and you're going to spend some time thinking, is this is the road that I need to take, or is it that one? I'm not sure, I'm doubting. So here you're already wasting your time, and actually what you're wasting is this energy, right? There's no boost that's going to kind of like propel you to just take that path and head towards your destination. You're kind of not sure, and that makes you weak. You don't have that energy to just start walking, right? And we all need energy in order to, especially when we're talking about accomplishing the Dharma, we all need to rely on this kind of innate energy, as Khenpo said, right? This kind of inner resources. Our inner resources are going to be depleted if our minds are confused and not sure. If we feel like we're not sure, well, that is actually depleting us of our energy. And then, well, it's going to take a really long time to traverse the path. Or in this way, of course, to accomplish the Dharma, such as whether we are just studying or practicing meditation, right? When we are doubting, we don't have that boost, we don't have that energy to do it.
Teni tesum ki diba nipa de kandes dibgiresana da tesum se de ko salba mebajirawa seba mebaji tomdom dabajire ani di sedu dela 당아서 인지케나 uncertainty de shukchum bayore di imbi kimsenla ngaransu pena ngaransu maungbala sambatang yongdu misela petawa shakwana maungba di karichage yime ki uncertainty de shukchum bayona misedela anxiety shukchum shibushi degdwa karresna tempo mebaji instability se warwa tindegi tsonans le warwa 다 디게 되는 가란술라 샘들라 낭삽 anxiety 숙청부지 되그래 대양들이 대슴나 되는 연구도 와 unclarity체 unclarity 기드니 uncertainty다 디게 되니 anxiety of uncertainty 숙청부 레비는 거.
Another way how doubts are making our path really difficult is that when we are of two minds, when we doubt something, we lack clarity, we are confused, we are lost, and that lack of clarity and confusion leads to uncertainty. We are not certain anymore, right? Let's think, for example, of future, and when we think about the future, and if we completely unsure of what is going to happen, right, that kind of the sense of uncertainty pains us and gives us anxiety. So the feelings of insecurity and instability follow from that lack of clarity. In this way, we can see that process very clearly, how it all starts with lack of clarity, which actually is doubt, nothing other than doubting. So, no, rather, sorry, let me do it again. Rather, everything starts with a doubt. And from doubting, we become very unclear about what's going on. And when we lack clarity, it leads to uncertainty. We're not sure or certain anymore. And that leads to anxiety.
되니 당한주 태숨세디 태숨기 디바세디 지당다 ngaranzula 태숨기 디바 계획인 규견다 시라 망보래 계사게 율 베나 당하란수 최종의 계제셔바이나 shila tesum sawa pena shi demba nila tesum sawa lamcho nila tesum sawa debu ku nila tesum sawas teni yongcho go yore teni toksu gi ngon samno tangba nani ngonsum gi yulla tesum sawa 야 chö kashi kogyur yimba songsa ngaran jogi tesum sawa tende yore ta tesum기 계기 균신단 유견디 망부시라 요래
There are many various causes and conditions that contribute to this obscuration of doubting, obscuration of doubt. If we think from the Dharma point of view, there are many ways in which we can give rise to doubt. We can doubt the two truths which constitute the ground of all phenomena. We could doubt the path, that's nothing other than the union of the two accumulations, wisdom and merit. Or we can harbor doubts with regard to the fruit, the result, which is the union of the two bodies of the Buddha, kayas, two kayas. So we could also have doubts about the object that is directly perceived by our direct valid cognition, which is observed by our sense sources, or we can doubt the objects that are hidden from our sense faculties, the objects about which we only can hear and infer to, but we're still unsure about them. So there's this really a vast array of possible venues for us having a doubt when it comes to the Dharma.
teni anzu pena nangsul kunzub gi chö la samlo tangning teni tesum teni mangbo yo chogo yore nelu dondam bi chö la samlo tangni tesum teni ya mangbo ge chogo yore
For example, we can have doubts about the relative truth of all phenomena, which is the way they all appear. Or we can also harbor a lot of doubts about the ultimate nature of phenomena, the way they truly are.
peshana nganzu tsengachi legumde tanda dega nashingi chi susuki dinzuda kogyurki nangsulki chöre susuki loki kodu gyurba yinba sonsa ani dela tesum sagi yore dega nashingi danda ngaranzu tongshinbi ki sudang tuishinbi ki da tembar dhubdhub tabdo yoba dinzu nilu wangzin tu chedu tembar madhubba donyi dan doda yin sungbare dinzu la nganzu tesum sagi yore dinzu da shiraki sabo yinba dan susuki loki samdi mikyaba yinba sonza nganzu dela tesum sagi yore
To illustrate these points I just made, how can we doubt the appearing mode of all relative phenomena? Well, some phenomena that belong to this category of relative truth are phenomena that we cannot perceive directly with our own faculties. They are hidden from our direct valid cognition, such as, for example, past and future lives, or karma, cause and effect, right? So this is all appearing mode of phenomena. And yet, because we don't really perceive it, we are doubting are these, truths are really true actually or not. And when it comes to doubting ultimate abiding mode of all phenomena, Well, when we look at the things that surround us, the ones that we do perceive with our own faculties, they appear as true and solid and real. And yet we have been told that ultimately that's not the case. They are not true and real. Actually, they are emptiness. They lack true existence. They're beyond all mental constructs. But this is so profound that again, it kind of escapes our mind. We can't really conceive of that. It's inconceivable truth. So again, this is so hard for us to grasp that we doubt it.
Tene chue kashe ya ngaran zu ki ha ma ko ni ta thong ma tup ni nyong ma tup ni nga zu la thesum ki ge re nge dan da sheba na shin ta ne lu dun zu re mi she be re te ta mi she pa la tene thesum ki ge re ine ya chue mang po ji nga zu mi she ba ma re se bu ji ni ta nam gyu ni thong de ba thwe de ba 개경게 망보지니 랍데바 소소게 미세나라야 니마다 니마신도 통데바레디 이네 다둥 아주 될라지 대점기 ngol인지 두고요 말에 덴바임발라 빼샤나 미다바다고 미다바디 당원이지나 랍 먹어야 다고치러봐 쇼페니 공다바도 지코 통제 퇴제 용제 탐지 미다바라시 임바직 시라 세버러봐 좀 웃음 그러다 무슨 잡을 세워봐 이내야 하더니 아주 다동해야지 스스간라 미다바디 태용도 아주 딜라 20개 마도 바다 원인지만 딘조 가르에서는다 아주 녀몽발로 곰차디 슉체다니 아니 덴바기 된들라 원인지 마도 바딘조 태좀 개바딘이 연구여래 더디는 게 가르치우신 태좀 카시 나나주 미셰발 때니 중고요래 태좀 카시 나나주 미셰바 말에 시통 퇴대바 있네야 다동양들이지 멀린지 마도 받던데 연구도 봐 된소다 녀몽바 마음이 왕게 녀몽바다 마리발라 빼 곰자다고데 슉치다다고 쳐 왕의 연구요래
In this way, we give rise to doubt with regard to some phenomena because we don't see them, we don't experience them, we don't have direct perception of them. And so because we don't know whether they're really true in the way of we just spoke, right? Like emptiness, lack of mental constructs, we don't know. And that's why we doubt. So this doubt comes from our ignorance, let's say, from us not really knowing, because there's no way for us to really directly encounter those truths. But there are also many things that we know really well because we hear them, we see them, the teachers talk about those truths over and over again, and more than that, we really encounter them every day of our lives, such as impermanence. This is nothing, it's not hidden from our direct perception. It's actually right there, right in front of our eyes and ears day after day, and yet we still can't accept it. We still doubt when we encounter the situations of impermanence, right? It's something that we can directly experience, but when it comes to really taking impermanence to heart, we have a strong doubt. And why? Because we're strongly habituated to thinking otherwise due to our afflictive emotions, our disturbing emotions, and of cover our perception, right? They afflict us and cover our perception. So even though we directly experience or encounter impermanence, we still can't really let that truth sink in us. In this way, Some doubts come from us just not knowing, not being able to experience those phenomena in our lives. But other times the doubts come from, even though we know about, impermanence, for example, we're just too afflicted. We have just too many disturbing emotions, and that's why we still doubt.
다 태숨기 짜와티다 마렉바라와 그래 이내양 다 고대부진이 셰바이나 태숨기 다 중사다고지 중당다고디 가와니 연구도 선행하나들로 삼야고 따나 다 태숨 쪼어 가나 단다 취역이 값을라 다 내루단데 내게지 셰베 값을라 다디 고대부진나 나란술라 김세 망보라 때능에 단지 쉐바나신 다 수수 수수 가와니 게 여바다 데 룽바게 리슝 가레 임바당 수수 가레를 럽종 장 여바당 수수 춘중 값으니 간데기 지소나나 찰롱 중바당 다 때리 김세 망보 연구여사래 강다르 돌디나 태숨디 망보디 땅 아주 내룩게지 셰베 값을 태숨 슉체쇼 다 망체바다버디 중거의 김센다버다 짜바다버디 가르레스나 마란솔라 아주 깨니 다다바르돌라 검샤베게 바샤게 땡돌라 다 인지켈라이나 preconceived 망보시여레 다 디레 쪼디 마란소이나 다페제 autopilot preconcept of chire ta ding anzu ki tene yimba ding anzu ha ko yo marwa ha ma ko yong de tene de dang mathum ba dang dele de ba dang rwa chikeje ji shi yong de ne lamsang anzu if dang but dang tene ki tene doba mangba ji lamsang le yong ko automatically garresana ngaran su ki semgyu ki tengdolata autopilot ki preconcept yaba songsan ta di tesumgi jungsa ki zawada wo zoji di chagi ta peji di lamna go dewa do du dingdu
So if we try to understand what causes our doubts, what is really the root, right, the main cause of us doubting. Right, of course, the main cause we can say is ignorance, but if we're not satisfied just with that answer, like if we want to dig deeper and really try to understand, but what is that? What does it mean? How, why do we doubt so much, right? Of course, we're talking about doubting in terms of Dharma, right? And how things truly are, doubting the ultimate natural state of phenomena. At this moment, we're talking about that context, right? So actually, there are many reasons, many causes for us doubting and having this kind of uncertainty, lack of clarity, right? I already spoke a few times that comes a lot from our own personal upbringing, kind of backgrounds that we have, like what kind of culture do we come from, how we were raised in our society. Of course, all of those factors contribute tremendously to the way we think and sort of challenge the Dharma and doubt the Dharma. However, if we really, really want to pin down, but what is it? What's the main cause, like the root of our doubts, right? I will have to say that it's our habitual tendency to just, regard things from, really from this preconceived point of view, having a lot of preconceived notions. In other words, being on autopilot most of the time, like taking things for granted, right? Like, we can see that, right, about ourselves. We can really see that's what's happening. We are taught some really profound truth, right, in the Dharma, and right away our mind, this autopilot mind which is on autopilot, the mind that has a lot of preconceived ideas, right away comes up with like but or if, right? It's like automatically happens to us, right? That's exactly what's happening, right? A lot of doubts right away pop up because our mind is just kind of in its baseline, sort of in default mode, just on this autopilot that already has all these preconceived notions about how things are. So I think that's really the root then of our tendency to doubt.
Tindu nganzu samjungi sherab keba tang tezum se gugudu na jedang tabshi da yorwa pena da susu kazan laban na shin tebe sherab sambe sherab da dinzula daji tangnen kale kale tini kowa tin nyongwa da tokpa la janin tuye de tabshi chigre tini tabshi shimba da ngaransu nga dan dinzu kapsula sungpa tatu cheba inani tini pena jesuin jambi yang dabu chigla sowa gyamni uni tani jesuin jambi yang la nga ki tesum meba soya ki kenze nusum denyu sambi ki lo tsechi ki yeshi ki koni tini nge tesum di meba nangro che sini sowa tsechi ku tabe di tangan suyi na shortcut tabure tesam gomsum rimba shindu dwe rinzu ta di su gyunung bu kecha tabura ta dela tini megyu dana ya bochi kogudu wa di niga ki tini lega chigi ware ine ta susu ngoni je ke chesho di karres na kadu ine tesum ki yombe kapsula ngarang ki preconceived autopilot preconceived ki tini influence je du je mendus ani nge preconceived de la nge ichi je ko ya ki kimsen kare dus ko demba yimbe ki dubje kare dus di samla tang ba ina ani susu tesum mangbuji mila di moga ba chini rani ki rani le diwa ko bi thoni tesum mangbuji meba charu ti shiragin naga chumbore anzu ta komda tinji chebe kapsula susu diwa dila susu ki pa diwa kurni ani diwa di meba chatu tabshe shore di da pe tabshe yak shore organic tabshe do redwa
Now, the Mahamud respiration prayers clearly states that it's the wisdom that comes from contemplation that's going to then clear away our doubts. So how does it work? Of course, there are various methods to address, to clear away doubts through this process of contemplation, or in other words, integration of the teachings. As I have explained in the previous Dharma session, this is a process where we take our, teachings, we study it well, so we gain intellectual understanding. Slowly, by integrating the teachings, we gain experiential feeling of the teachings, and then putting them into practice, we gain stable realization. So if we go through this really clear path of transforming our intellectual, conceptual understanding into experience and then into realization, that's going to do it. That's going to cut through our doubts. But there is also other way. In the tantric tradition, it is said that we just need to supplicate Manjushri. Of course, one-pointedly, with fervent devotion, supplicating the deity of wisdom, believing, of course, at that moment, really genuinely believing that Manjushri has ability, has wisdom, has loving kindness and compassion, and that power to really help us and clear away our doubts. So it requires this kind of really fervent devotion, one-pointed concentration on Manjushri and his qualities of wisdom, love, abilities. And this is a shortcut, right? The other path of transforming intellectual understanding to experience and realization is a long path. It's a long process. It's going to take a long time. But here, the Tantras give us this shortcut. right? But also, mainly, I would say the really great method to clear away our doubts, the lack of clarity, is to check when we have a doubt, right? When we're doubting something, we right away need to check, am I doubting, am I acting now on autopilot? Is my mind kind of on autopilot and just believing into already preconceived notions, and that's why I'm doubting? So we need to ask ourselves this question. When we have doubts, we tend to go out and ask others questions, right, to kind of help us to clear away our doubts. But really, if we ask this one question ourselves, am I on autopilot? Is it just preconceived ideas that I believe in and take things for granted? That's why, right? That's why I'm doubting. If we ask ourselves this question is going to clear away all our questions. You see the trick? It's like really organic way. You don't need to ask others. You ask yourself just one question. Of course, you ask yourself while being in a very calm and clear state of mind, like in your meditation session, right? You really dig, kind of turn inwards and question yourself. Am I doubting because I'm just believing, right, on already something from before, and that's why I'm doubting? And that one question, that kind of personal, we can say personal questioning is going to do away with your doubts. Like that's the most clear, organic way of dealing with it.
당한주 수수기 쌤기 땡돌라 대숨 타보 된주 렌디 치니 세용도 찍라 렌폭도 양 렌코랑 디와를 차도 그래. 그러봐. 조규 매바지. 되니 다 수수기 대숨 코랑라 파 대숨 제시하바이나. 대숨 매바 차도에 되니 용도도 와. 디와 코랑라 파 디와고니. 다 디와디 다징기 인플루언스 제바 인세그레 니징기 인플루언스 제바 인세그레 마리베 인플루언스 제바 인세그레 봐. 안 디디다 아주 곰 되주나라 베디 닝제바 샤다 베나 아주 라 둘기 소갸용디 아니 데기 둑디 메바스웨라 아니 야 두코랑기 두코랑 베제타네 아니 파조기 두디 메바스웨 두고도 봐. 근데 탑시에 나는데니 사이드 이펙트 메교게 탑시에 야보인 송바래.
When our minds have this very subtle doubts, right? We tend to look for questions like why, what's happening, what is this? Sorry, I'm not looking for questions. No, I think we're looking for answers. Sorry, we're looking for answers by asking questions. Here we go, right? When we have the subtle doubts, that's what's happening. We have so many questions, we ask them, and we kind of looking to get answer. And we're giving answers often from others. We find answer, but what happens? Our mind then turns that answer into yet another question. In this way, there's really no end to our doubts, right? We never reach the point where it's like, okay, that's it. I got the answer. That's it. It's kind of like, okay, we have an answer, but let me question the answer again. And so it goes, right? And it's an endless process. So what to do? Instead of looking for answers, just ask a question to your questioning mind, right? You see, you have this questioning, doubting mind. So now ask a question to your questioning mind. Right? The mind could be influenced by just dualistic fixations, could be influenced by ignorance, could be influenced by any type of grasping, right? And we need to question that. That's what we need to question. This is really the very profound way. And in the Dharma, we have analogy to illustrate this way of dealing with our problems. For example, the analogy goes as the metaphor really goes as following: if we get poisoned, right, in order to treat our poisoning, we're gonna use poison itself as an antidote. So it is said that if we use poison, it will serve as an antidote to poisoning, and actually it will not have any side effect. So this is kind of the most profound way of dealing with this mind, the doubting mind.
Tene nganzu pechigla dulkin tupa rangrol do songba sini dulki tupa di shikengi shemba kogumidwa korang rang pa dol to gre isla bare tadi indu tanda nganzu pena melare pa ta tene ta telonaro konna ba ki loma tenzola tamngana di tendeki technique di peje mo botang nang do wa.
We also say that it's just like a snake that has ability to unknot itself. There's no one else who needs to come, right, and kind of if a snake coils into this one knot, there's no one else who can really unknot it, but the snake itself does it to itself. So that's what we need to do, ourselves to ourselves. This is a very profound technique that was used a lot by the masters such as Tilopa, Naropa, Milarepa.
Tadi nganzu ina di dawa chagido self-help doctor dawach.
Then we become, as Khenpo just said, a self-help doctor.
Tadini nganzu nangba sanje peki tawa di peki chumbo tsegi wara tawa sana ngishe la segi wara nge dangi shaba na shinda kawa toku gudu sana tosa di sebo ngishe keba tila tani tawa gyula yaku ke machu kendi yang zogo di karesin tesum dire ngana zu mang sheba ki chula jukba ina yang chi speed tang boost daw di yungu midwa lamla karechini yungu yo marisana nganzu gyula tawa yang dakpa di tadung maje bare tawa yang dakpa di karechini maje baresana tesum gittiba di yobatene chumare dinde yimba sonsa dini tesum gittiba di meba soya di nega chumbare tawa yang dakpa mena chigni bus yungu marila nini gombatan chubatan zu yabo yung togu midwa.
In the Dharma, the view is extremely important, and the view is certainty, is having certainty. Just like I mentioned before, certainty means when we are faced with different routes and we know very clearly which road we need to take, right? That kind of certainty of knowing where we are heading to, that's the view. And the main obstacle maker that prevents us from developing authentic view in the Buddha Dharma, it's doubts. It's our doubts. Doubts really slow us down. It's like we have become Buddhists, we have entered onto the Buddhist path, and yet we lack speed, efficiency. We don't have this kind of boost, right, when it comes to really traversing the Dharma path. Why? Why don't we have that pace, that kind of speed we need? It's because we haven't developed authentic view. Why we haven't developed authentic view is because we still doubt. In this way, you can see that clearing away doubts is really a very vital point in the whole of the Buddha Dharma. For one, it's going to, the doubts going to slow down process of walking on the path, we're not going to have that speed and boost. And secondly, when we actually don't have authentic view, then we're not going to have also proper practice of meditation or conduct. So the view is really important. The certainty is very important, and therefore clearing away doubts is really a very crucial task for all of us.
다치당 아주 레 당보바이나 강에 망치와도 가려서는 미시비 뒤바디 강에 망여와 배는 아주 퇴비시라고 값을 쪼디 미시비 뒤바디 강에 채용 거와 다단다 태수문기 뒤바디 쪼 술래 연구여서는 다 람라 죽심베 와 가려서는 다 아주 람라 죽사베 젤라다 디레 디마레 따와 둡다 택과 깨져먹보지 연구 여바인들다 가시 툼바요레 가시 미툼바요레 가시 갈바요레 대인들이 안아주기 럽종 장니 당한주이나 다지 남바 상계백이 최래 쇼니 로카시 젤라드니 다 대좀데 마르마르 되더니 연구래 다다징 아주 최 다다징 냠수 말린 바이나 대인들다 디 대좀기 디바디 아주 만체와 술래요레스나 레 당보발라시다요 말에 최래 쇼 싱갱의 강사 라버도드니 다 따둡다 쇼나 럽종 장겐데주 퇴섬 곰숨 찬념도 제 마tum니 퇴바짬 제발 하대바 된줄라더니 디디바도 쇼춤 용어다 디인데 아주 믹스에게 당 아주 다거든 줄라 믹스에게 사서 제거야지 자기열에 디바디.
You know, for the beginners, those who just encountered the sacred Dharma, Buddhism, just countering the path, the main obscuration, the one that the beginners have to watch out for, is not knowing, right? The first one among these three obscurations, here translated as ignorance in the text. You know, that's something that the wisdom that comes from receiving the teachings, listening to the teaching, studying, kind of deals with, right? But for those who have already been on the path for quite some time, quite some years, right? There is so, especially those who study seriously. Study means study philosophy, study various philosophical systems of the Buddha Dharma. There are so many points like, oh, this is like this is like that, this is a vehicle, this vehicle teaches like this path teaches like that, right? There's so much, and some of those points make sense, others don't make sense. And so what happens that after the years of entering onto the path of becoming a Buddhist, especially when you seriously engage in studies of philosophy and philosophical tenet systems, you give rise to a lot of doubts. Of course, it comes because you haven't engaged properly, right? It happens because you have separated your studying from integration of those teachings and putting them into practice. So when you separate the three processes and you just get stuck in the first one, studying, right? Years after years, you study and study. At the end, if you haven't done it properly, you have so many doubts, right? And so this second obscuration of doubting is really the primary problem of people like us, for most of us who have been already on the path for quite some time, right? Because beginners, they don't have many doubts. They just like encounter the Dharma, so excited, but they don't know much. But us who have already studied a lot, what we're left with, if we haven't done the study properly, integrating it with our lives, is that we're left just with a lot of doubts.
다 디디스 년가 차워요래 아주 데를 면제다와 야고 맞잖아 대중대 맞잖아 그냥 아주 디지 dharmically insensitive 차로도 와 디년가 차워래 남차로 디 야고요 말에 소소라의 팬도 말에 미셴발라의 미베 야고 차그 말에 되는 자성와이나.
This is quite dangerous if we leave those doubts unaddressed, not treated, not really dealt with. it is dangerous because it will lead to, it kind of will make us dharma insensitive, or in other words, how we translate this term from Tibetan is we will be jaded, right? Jaded. Dharma is not going to touch us anymore. And so it's not going to help us personally. And when we are jaded and insensitive to the Dharma, we're not going to help others as well.
다 벤나가서 상계기 까당 된제된줄 롭죠 장도되니 택바 림바 망보여래 상계기 까라 장된당에 된스니 여래 되니 대나신기 도당 악라야 개발지 용거래 되니 ngaki gyudinzu lobjong jangyong be kapsula de shiragi ji kashe yang dodang gawadabu tanangla teni gyudinzu mixe ge ta pe sangwa jini ngazu ni jingba da tukpa segro ba dendesni sungsha re ta dende ge shung denzu la teni
Chimpadan
jingba dang jingba sena ta de ko ngazu ni ji ga ana ore shilt je sha bo shilt jingba ba Tindu da dinzo ki danda dinzo nganazo dep lokwa chamchik ta yigi lokwa chamchik tinde ki gosugu mare dokwa tang tesu mangbochi ki gre tini da dinzo yang tini susu kin gewi shenyen da lama damba da dinzo le teni tini dokwa saye dinzo da nganazo ki ge chumbochi chagido wa
di chimpadi nazo pernang gyu di lobjang chena de dodang galva tachika jandong dang tez galva yures de ne chimpadi kanjes de ne nazo karichi gires
jingba sena penanta gyugi danda kashi sabo yindu di intentionally shield wa cover
okay gonda ya hakuson
and shuffle 태강 메바던데 안수이나 코트라고 쓰셔라 봐. They are reading as a 코트라고. 어디 인들이 다 깔래가 보여래.
Well, for example, right, when we are engaging in a serious study of the Buddha Dharma, studying the words of the Buddha himself, studying the treatises, the commentaries on the words of the Buddha, there is so many different various contexts or categories, departments of the Buddha Dharma. There is many vehicles, right? The different truths and teachings, philosophies belonging to different vehicles. There are teachings that are to be taken literally as the definitive, having definitive meaning, and also there are teachings that are not to be taken literally, that require interpretation. So we call those teachings having a provisional meaning, not the definitive meaning. We also have the categories such as sutric teachings, and we have tantric teachings. And some of the tantric teachings, like when you study tantras, some of the teachings there seemingly contradict this kind of provisional meaning of the sutras. So this is done, of course, also this happens because many of the tantras written in this very cryptic language, like they're really encoded, and we need to decipher that language. It's almost like really, it's intentionally, because the topic is so profound, the tantras are written intentionally in a way to shield that, and that topic from us. Like it's shuffled, it's not directly addressed, it's not clear. So it's written like a code and in a very cryptic way, so we get even more confused, and then we have more doubts. So it's understandable we have so many doubts. The teachings are very vast, profound, and so just by reading a book, we're not going to clear away our doubts. We're not going to get that clarity to like, okay, I understood it after all. No, in order to clear away doubts, we also absolutely need to seek the spiritual master, authentic teacher that can then help us to clear away all those doubts, to sort all those different teachings, like, and make it all clear for us.
Tene lagwar do da nga zu begi nang tin di do dang nga tene shira ki ta kya chumbo complexity aspects of Buddhism di cha di yo ba indu tende nga zu la ka ngai di ma yo re like compared to Theravada da wa da pen Zen Buddhism da wa cha sha ba ina.
Well, and if you are on the path of the Tibetan Buddhism, then you probably all have already experienced the complexity of all the teachings, the sutric, philosophical teachings, the tantric teachings. It's so much more complex and rich, complex compared to Theravada teachings or Zen teachings.
Ta ge chi shu de gari res na ngan su pecha ta khen da lobchon jang ge de na ani tangbo ta chue se de le la bu da wo ji re sam da wo ji ani te jo lobchon jang du sabro kya che ro to tene tawa tang tup ta thekpa mangbo ki ke ja de shi ong de tene nga zu karo chi ni tene go nang ke do chi gro ba tene sem de la yang tene dingyu bo bo to pa thesu mangbo do chi cha gre te cha tu tene kap kap la ngara zo ta ti dukja ji insa re sam da wo ji chona yong se gro ba ta ge chi sho di ngone chena duk
Kare di kapsu dukche karere natso samlot.
dokpa tang thesu mangdo chimba di
Di dukchere laso hakusum.
다 껴라 보지 근데 초알 레그로 왔다 가 럽종 장기 메 럽종 장나 두루 두고도 되네 존나 슬립스 그러 봐 다디 빼 내가 좀 버려 아주 망쳐하기 되니 내가 참샤샤기도 와 고나니 아 당보 빼 레라보 다보지 요서를 삼 아니 장도 되니 칼레 카로 치니 아니 가라치니 되니 대좀 먹고차 아니지 아 nganzo ina chi karisa wara chi expectation versus reality da wa chi khoka khaga wa charu do ba ta di karres na ngone jena kerang ki tokwa thesum de mang do chini ta tokwa thesum khurang da yabo mar ba re de ina ya di symptom re ba di symptom kyang ba re di duba mare kerang ki sherab de toz ya 야게 두고 여봤다래 시랍디 짠이 야게 만도나 아니 도바 대숨 코나 연구 말아 디 인데 값을라 디디 참 샤규여 말에 미투니 아니 롭존 잔니 다 가르치는 다기도 소와탑 구구도 왜 질랍슈 구구도 왜 차세 구구도 왜 얘기하사 구구도 왜 탑시 먹고 여러 봐 덴딜라 때니더니 도바 쓸답 제고 그래 다 나라 도바 대숨 만도 돼디 나랑 또주 퇴바 제백이 데부다버레샤 선에 되니 삼다이데 게shum버레 마도 참샤나 야고요 말에 빼샤나 가르레스나 만주 맨다버지 사바에네 맨디기 리액션 짠이 마데바에나 딘 맨디기 시라 마펜 바라와 딘 맨사용데 가솔라 갑깔로 또즈 차와도 파르 딘디지니 리액션 연구도 와디 다디 코 심텀 러바 이네양다 디기 나나 레가지 지기 요다 러바
Symptom di side effect.
디인디 맞을 럽종 잠 penangan tanda kap dawoji gyaba ina rawa kap kala chawatezu phagido wa anda di ko chidang dugja marwa ina chawa phaba khorang ta dungare de ine ya di dugja ge ta kaya marwa di ko ngansu ji penangana zu mendi ge ta nesa nyamdo la khopa di ji gi yobe ge ta rawa teni di ji di ta tordina sosola ji 럽종 장니다 출을 주용도 도가 태수 말을 두고도 제자 가 참샤긴 되는 삼당기 매바래 디 아니 딱 약보래 소소기 때즈 시랍이 짤디 말을 두고 여봤다래 다 이내 야더니 다 도가 태수 간라 베는 맨다워지 산이 또즈지 가서 지 가서 그러지 렙디니 맨 참샤샤바네 내서도 미투네 펜도고 말아봐 미투네 사야디 게좀 물어봐 딘디다 미투네 팔 dokwa seltabla juge di penega chumbare
Kempla cham didakcha karere.
mare la nga zu netak daw nesa ge tak symptom daw ba pena nga zu symptom daw na nga zu kap la Kau lang ang
What happens with the students of the Dharma in the beginning, when they just start their serious study of the philosophy and all the different tenet system and so on, they think it is easy, right? And at the beginning, it seems easy, but with time, the teachings grow more and more complex, more vast, more profound, right? And we sort of get, at some point, we just get a headache after we study all those, vehicles and exactly what we spoke about before, these different categories. It just gives us headache, and we get like really uptight in our minds and start doubting a lot, right? And we think like, oh, okay, well, I'm doubting now the teaching, so doubting is really bad, so something is wrong, so I think I shouldn't study, because studying just makes me doubting more. Like, studying is bad because I studied, and now when it got so complex, I just get really confused, and this is bad. So many students then think, oh, I should better stop this studying and just take it easy, right? Because what happens is that, well, when they started, it all seemed and probably was easy. Then it grew more difficult with time. Those difficult and complex topics created more doubts in the minds of the students. And this is just basically their expectation versus reality problem, right? What they expected and then what actually happens. And so they stop because they think, well, doubts means that something is wrong. It's like, right, so I shouldn't study. In reality, doubts, of course, doubting in itself, like doubt itself, is bad. But having doubts in this, in the process of studying and reflecting on the teachings is not bad. It's actually just a symptom of us engaging with the Dharma. It's a kind of a good sign that our intelligence is growing, right? Because it's if we actually were not reflecting on the teachings, right? If our intellect was not developing and growing, our understanding was not increasing, we wouldn't have any doubts. Actually, doubting shows that we are engaging with the Dharma, we are developing our intelligence. It's just like a symptom of us being on the right path. In itself, doubt is bad. We shouldn't keep it. But having it at this point of time is not bad. It's basically like with, with medicine. If, we have to sometimes, like, some types of treatments have a little bit of we have reaction, our body have reaction to these treatments, like maybe needles, right? If we doing acupuncture, right, there is maybe like we have even a little fever after a treatment, so it's like our body reacting, which is okay, it's normal. So it's just like doubting. This is just a natural, normal outcome of us studying. We just have to see what we need to do at that moment to kind of balance out our studies. Perhaps we need to supplicate more. We need to maybe do some prostrations. We need to request blessings or recite some mantra. There are many ways to deal with it. But stopping studying and just like putting, an end to it and leaving the process in this time when we actually still have doubts is not going to help us, right? Because we haven't resolved doubts. We just stopped it while still having doubts. So it's nothing. We should understand that's normal. That's just a sign that we are progressing, right? Like us having reaction to a treatment. It's actually a good sign. It means something is happening in our body. So it's fine to have these symptoms of having doubts, right? Otherwise, if we just drop studying, if we drop engaging with the Dharma in the serious way of reflecting and contemplating, then what happens? We remain with the doubts, right? And that basically means that we stop too early. It's like medicine that produced this little bit of reaction in our body. Medicine itself is good, it's working. But if we, after the first time doing the treatment or taking medicine, just like decide, oh, it's bad for me, and we just like stop right in the middle, right, of our treatment, well, the treatment is not going to work. is we dropped it, right? Halfway through. So we need to see it till the end. And having symptoms and these kind of reactions in the middle of treatment, that's fine. So just like that, we should also treat our doubts when they increase at the time of studying.
Tene 내가 전부 찍디 먼저 두 스타츠 럽존자 냠는 제 용도 만나서라 sense of confused sense of loss 지 용그래. 아주 남지 아주 loss 지그와. 다 지당 아주 디 두자르와 confusion 다 lost I'm lost 두자르와. 레테 이내야 딜라 healthy 지당 unhealthy 지니래. healthy confusion 지당 loss 지당 unhealthy confusion 다 loss 요래. 디니 예와데 치어셔 그래. unhealthy 디 야보 말봐. in a healthy confusion dang healthy loss di yabore di ngazu khayo mare peshana ngazu kapla nga nge samba se pe shukshum berwa rigid shiwjere deni che nyamlen je yongdu kangsam jini deni di nga nge se di to zoji lost do confused do shukchomborang rigid rang mebadawji concrete mebadawji chana this is sense of lost and confused dawji yongri healthy re ti yewa chere shira nega sabure ti inde kapkalang asu che nyamnin jitu tortunanda keranti is lost awada confused aw feel jige na regarding to keranki preconcept 다 닥진된 줄라 이 약보래 it's a 만족이 small portion of liberation nirvana
In this way, when we study the Dharma, this very, engaging with the Dharma in this serious way, and we get this sense of being confused, of being lost. Of course, generally, being lost and confused is nothing nice, right? Nothing good. However, here, we need to differentiate between healthy confusion, healthy kind of sense of being lost, and unhealthy confusion and unhealthy sense of being lost. So of course, unhealthy, like being confused and lost, is not good. But healthy one, it's good. So we need to make sure what exactly is happening. Because, for example, generally, before the Dharma, when we just start with the Dharma, we have a very rigid concepts about I, me, it's my thought, right? And then the more we engage with the Dharma, slowly, to some degree, we lose that kind of, rigidity of concepts of I and mine, and not having this very concrete idea that's me, mine. We get a bit confused, right? It's a bit like, this kind of a bit of a disillusionment with this very rigid boundaries of me and mine, and it's a bit disorienting, but it's healthy. This is something that's healthy, even though we feel lost at that moment, right? So when we are lost and confused with regards to our own ego or self-grasping, our own preconceived ideas, like now we're not sure anymore what we thought, is it true, like from before. This is good. This is good. This is a small liberation. This is like a mini nirvana.
the nganzu feeling loss the touch to duja imping ba yo mare ne kapla the yapores.
In this way, feeling lost is not always just categorically across the board bad. Sometimes it's really good.
Laso ta tering tordina ani ta samjung ki sherap di ki tesum kebarche bala tesum titini dibati seko gores ta tesum dibati le dangbo pa le kyang ngarang su lamla shuk simbe kansala shuk chumbu shung gore ti nga su dibanani ta ti nga su sabsab che ko sa chi cha gores tini ta tesum ki dibati chidang gyudang ke mangbo yore tinan so di da ngarang su ki preconcept di mangbo yona de sam ki tesum mangbo yon gores 다 대중 방당 대한테니 탑시 라면다 요래 이네 탑시 다 내가 당 조디 디와디 칠레디니 렌포 많이 맞네 랑기 디와랑나 파 렌당니더니 아니 렌 따파 디와디 메바 차송 바이나 디 탑시 야쇼지레스 되니 라소 나든데다 오신서리
Just to clarify, Khenpo, the par chiva matane sur chiva
디와 베나 디와 쿠켄기 디와 코랑라 파 디와 쿠레쇼라 소소라 디와.
So we coming to a closure with our Dharma session today. To recap, what we have learned today is that wisdom that arises from contemplation, or in other words, integration with the Dharma, is going to clear away our doubts. And the obscuration of doubt is the main obscuration of those who have already been on the Dharma path for a while. So it's really not a problem of beginners, but more of some seasoned practitioners and students of the Dharma. So they, or us, in this way, have to be careful with it. We also discussed that there are many causes and conditions that lead us to doubting, but among those, really the main cause is us having many preconceived notions. The more of these preconceived, rigid ideas we have, the more doubts then we're going to experience along the path. And when it comes to the methods of clearing away doubts, again, I emphasize that one of the best, most organic, side effect-free method is not asking others to clarify our doubts and looking for questions outside, but rather turn inwards and ask our questioning mind the questions, right? To kind of question our questioning, that's going to cut through our doubts.
Tene samba chebe kapsula feeling tangazu chedube kapsula feeling lost the confused the part of journey race ani the touch to duja kaya mare ani the it's okay to feel lost.
And in the process of contemplating, integrating the teachings with our own mind, with our own lives, it happens that we get lost, we get confused, and that's all right. As Khenpo said it beautifully in English, it's just part of a journey. It's not always categorically just bad for us to feel, that feelings of being lost and confused. So remember that.
Dila tini nganzu healthy confusions lan pesi digmedo. Tiksena yan hag mokodan.
We perhaps can call it healthy confusion, but I'm not sure about really coining this new term. So please be careful using that.
Chanchu semchu rinpoche ma ke banam ke gyureche ke ba nyambara meba yang gone gondo pelvare sho